thank you for listening to the Drums and Rums podcast. If you'd like to help support the podcast and our content on YouTube, become a Drums and Rums Patreon member, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel as we work to get towards 1,000 subscribers. Links are listed in the description of this episode. And thanks again for checking out this episode and all of our other past episodes. Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums with the Backbeats Meets Spirits. Let's just get right to it, okay? This guy don't got time for all this foolishness. We're just going to get right to it. So let me introduce our guest to the podcast, recent competitor from the Discovery Channel's show Moonshiners and Master Distillers, Joe Jackson, a.k.a. High and Angry, a.k.a. JJ Jax, and thank you for your service. How are you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing all right. I like the intro, brother, like, because, I mean, everybody's like, oh, where I find you at? And I'm like, well, you know, when you're working in the thou shall not be namespace, you got to have several different monikers,
yep.
And that just, you know, it works out for me that way.
No, I totally understand, you know, and I try to weave carefully about, try to keep the things separate, right? And I know you were talking, you know, on the Nooner Nation podcast is, yeah, you know, you guys got day jobs. I've got a day job, you know, it's paying the bills. It's keeping this fun going. You know, again, we all want to make that transition. Everybody wants to make that transition to it. But yeah, I totally get it. I've kind of got my moniker and so forth as well, too, to kind of protect the innocence. And I've gotten to that point. I don't know if maybe you go through the same thing so what is your name? What is your
name? Oh, bro, like, well, like, that's the funny thing is, like, I came up with so many different, like, characters that I do on my little live streams. It's like, are you Daddy Dark Maga? Are you Jimbo Jenkins? Are you Black Man Claus? Wait a minute, who is this guy? Like, how many different forms do you got? And I'm like, well, I mean, at the heart of me, I think I'm actually, hilariously enough, fallen into what I really am at this point, and you know, hopefully it can transition over to being my day job. So.
Yeah, hey, you know, listen, Comedy Central, I know you're watching and listening, and he needs a show of his own. You got to watch his live streams. He's got a character. I love the pimp episode. Again, if you're listening to this and watching the video, you know, you got to go check over on his page or click on the live streams, and he's got and it's tough. I know you can kind of feel is when you're by yourself. And again, I'm typically by myself as well, unless I'm doing an interview show and so forth. I hate the ones where I do solo, or if I do my happy hour. I do a live stream also on Thursday nights, you know, and I call it the biggest happy hour in a half an hour. It's a reason to drink, have fun, talk shit, whatever. Our Florida Man story, whatever the case may be. Maybe we do it live. Maybe we'll take it. Yeah. I'll do a live on location kind of thing. I've gotten crazy about that. And then sometimes I just like keep it in the studio, keep it simple. And but yeah, it's the same thing. It's very funny and so forth. So yeah, so okay, so I talked about there, you know, the Discovery Channel there, so which was really cool. I got a chance to catch the episode, which aired back in January, and I know listen to the Nooner Nation podcast today, do my homework, and I said I know that podcast. It was like one of those, you know, you couldn't talk a whole lot because it hadn't aired yet, which is kind of, you know, I'm sure very tricky. But before we get really into all that is, you know, where did you start? You know, how did it, because again, as I mentioned, you know, thank you again for your service, you know, military background there, your Army Airborne, you know, a couple tours. Again, like I said, I picked that up from the episode there watching the Distillers show. And yeah, so how do we go? So how do we go from all that to military distilling? You know, you're in Pennsylvania, so I'm sure there's a little bit of backwoods kind of action going on there, right?
So I think it's like it's a multifaceted endeavor here. Like I went to college. I went to University of Pittsburgh. I was a theater arts, performance, and philosophy major. Like, you know, what are you gonna do with that other than like be in academia, right? Like I had grand dreams of like, quote unquote, being an actor or whatever. Like, and I did a lot of theater and stage performances around town professionally. But like, you know, that recession hit when I was getting out of college, and I was like, bro, like I need to do something else. There's no jobs. There's nothing going on. It was like late 2007, early 2008. And I was like, I've always wanted to be in the Army. So me being me, I was like, I'm going to join up. I joined. I was like, I'm going to be an airborne infantryman.
Wow.
I don't know.
So that was
fun.
So that was, so you graduated.
Yeah.
and then
Yep.
went to the army. Wow.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
and I enlisted. Like, I mean, I know, I think Dan Holloway and those dudes talk about it. I mean, he did the same thing I did. Is like you graduate and you're like,
Now
you know
what?
what? I don't want to be one of those guys. I mean, I want to be like a guys with the guys,
Hmm.
not like other than.
Hmm.
So like I didn't go the officer route. I just went straight enlisted. I was an overpaid private, which they make you a E4 specialist like right when you get in. It's really special. You're just an overpaid private. But so I joined and did a couple of tours to Afghanistan. Got out, got into sales. I mean, I worked in the oil field in sales. I worked all over in sales, and I finally landed on something that's like really sweet. But but a couple of years ago, man, I caught this bug. I started looking. It started with a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
I don't. Are you familiar with Still It?
No, no.
So there's this guy in New Zealand, and he's got like 500,000 followers now. Like
Damn.
he's killing it on YouTube. But I was like, this was back when he had like 3,000 followers, like 5 years ago. And he started making these videos where he's like, "Oh yeah, this is how you put a steel together. And I've got this boiler here, and I'm going to put it together, and it's going to be great. And we got to solder these joints up, and you put them together, and it's like, you got to make sure that it's all tight and sealed up." And I'm like,
Well,
damn,
JJ, let me pause you because I'm laughing because of those if you're listening to the podcast, you only can hear it here. You got to watch the video here. Tune over to the video here because it's just sitting. You got to see the picture with the voice the voice that he's doing. His version of a New Zealander.
he's
All
like,
right.
yeah, well, I've got all these things here, these parts and pieces, and we're gonna put them together. And I'm like, shit, this dude, like, I work in the pipe valve and fitting industry, like, I could put together and solder some shit, and like, you're gonna make your own stuff, like, shh, bro, like, what's holding me back?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from a YouTube video, and you're like, then you start reading online, and you find out like, oh, I figured out what's holding me back. You know, outside of the bounds of things. And you're like, oh shit. Well, that little idea was fun while it lasted, but honestly, there's just something. Anybody who's ever caught that kind of bug, man, there's just something about it that
Right.
just it
It's a
it
great.
takes over your brain space, man.
It's a where you have art and science, right? It's that creativitiness, and it's like baking or something, and you're always, what about this? What about sometimes bartend or cocktail, whatever they call them, you mixologists. There's always a little bit of this, and yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly where it fell in line with me because like I do I used to cook barbecue professionally with my dad. My dad had a barbecue business where we traveled like literally, I mean, all the way out to like Reno, Nevada for
oh
a
wow,
barbecue show. And we cooked professionally. We've been to Memphis and May competition in Memphis. We placed there. Like so like I know that world of like competition cooking. So I looked at it and I was like, bro, if I can make a recipe that is gangster as hell, that I can like produce, own, and like have it for myself. Like I love eating my own barbecue. Like
right,
why wouldn't I love drinking my own shit?
right, yeah,
Like so it really got me in a brain space where it's like it was kind of like therapy, the same way barbecue had been for me. I was like, oh, what about this idea? And then you go down this fucking rabbit hole where you're just like, I read. I mean, I'm sure you heard it on the thing, but I literally read online for like a fucking year before I did anything.
Mm,
And at the end of the day, it's like, pick your poison, right? I
right,
mean, what do you like to drink?
right, yeah. I think if you're asking rhetorically, asking the question, I think you already know the answer to the name of the podcast. So, but I'll always,
Well,
but in fairness, yeah.
in honor of you, I I took from the Solera tonight,
Oh,
and I've got it's the Solera. The oldest in the Solera is 4 years.
okay.
Uh, Blackstrap molasses. Um, it's pretty heavy profile. Like I call it Jamaican heavy profile, like
Hmm.
high ester rum,
Right.
because, and we can dive into this a little bit in a second.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
use like muck pits and like all kinds of, like, I guess what I would consider like the cooler end of rum
Yeah.
kind of styles to make my shit.
The
So
more, the
so
more.
cheers to you, sir.
Yes. Well, thank. Look, I don't even have anything yet.
Uh
Hold on. Since you said Jamaican, I'm gonna grab some Dr. Bird for you.
I like it.
A little bit of funk, right? That's the Jamaican funk there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. There we go. All right.
So with your
Cheers, JJ.
rum, yeah, cheers to you, sir. With your rum, do you prefer? I like 100 proof.
Hmm.
I don't like. There's a lot of these people out there that will argue for like 85, 90. Like, give me like 100, 105 all day long. For instance, rum fire.
Yeah.
Have you ever?
Yep.
I mean, that shit is. I would, if I could only buy one spirit for, you know, not the rest of my life, obviously, but if I could buy one spirit, rum fire, like that shit is gang. It's gangbusters.
Right.
Like they knocked it out of the park. It's heavy. It's high ester. It's clear, which most people are adverse to. Like, unfortunately,
Right.
and we can talk a little bit about that, but
Yeah.
it's clear, but it tastes so fucking good, dude.
It's a too bad we didn't do this episode early a couple weeks ago or last week was I told you to get your ass down here and to come hang out with me was I was just at the Miami Rum Congress, so it was a whole weekend of rum seminars, a lot of the brands that were there, a couple even people that attended that didn't have a booth. There was distillers and companies that were kind of just scoping things out, some of the new companies trying to figure things out, and it was, yeah. There's some, it is interesting as rum is probably the most versed Wild West, spirit that people don't quite get and understand. And I think that, and again, there's a lot of rum education that's been going on to kind of help people to understand what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
certain recognition for Barbadian rum, and or the greatest example people use is, well, no rum, new rum. Not all rum is the same because you would classify. You can't call bourbon if it ain't made in Tennessee, right? You can't call Scotch if it's not made in Scotland, or so,
Yeah.
so on and so forth, right? So it's, but yet rum is kind of got a whole nother, another thing, right? So,
Yeah, and the TTB doesn't even have. I mean, like there's no classification for. I mean, like literally, you can make a sugar wash and call it a rum because
it's
it's sugar and water,
right,
like or it's cane and water,
right.
right? Cane product and water, and it's like, well, wait a minute, like I I don't understand because like what's the one brand the one bottle that I literally get every time I go to the liquor store because it's on our shelves, and Pennsylvania is such a weird place, and they've got like a weird Commonwealth
Yeah,
dumb system.
because you're
But like,
control state, right?
yes, we are a
Okay.
control state. Yeah. So the one bottle that I get is I think it's called Probitus,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a blend. It's I think it's a blend of uh of a Hampton rum
Right.
and a blend of I think they put a Barbados rum in there. I think they blend it together, and it's a light blend. So like, but you get the heavy esters from the Hampton rum, and then you get the light, flowery,
Right.
you know, that essence from the Barbados rum. But like that, I mean, you're talking well balanced. Like, and if I can get it on the shelf, that's the one.
Mhm.
But bro, the rabbit hole is so deep on that end of the spirits realm. Like
Yeah.
I can't speak enough to it. Like I tried to I did a podcast with Tansy from Instill
Right.
with him and Bill. Like this had to be like 2 years ago now almost. Yeah. But I did a podcast like, and I'm like, there's so many different classifications. Like he's using Jaggery, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
there's so many different ways to skin that rum cat that it's just it's impossible to cover them all with a TTB classification.
Right. Yeah. And I know there's a big push to try to get away from the color naming, gold rum and white rum and black, it's like just because it's a certain, you got to go a little further deeper into it, right? And I think most people here that don't know, I don't want to say know any better, just because they're not aware, right? Educated or whatever, or even care, is very familiar because it's heavily marketed and it's 50% of the market is two big companies. And that's all
Yeah,
they know is more of a molasses based rum. And
yeah,
that's what they're used to because simply it's you order it, it's a this and this or whatnot. And then you try to throw an agricole on them to try to open their mind a little bit.
yeah,
They're mind blown because it's like this isn't rum. Why? Because it's not sweet or
yeah.
or it's very
But
fragrant. Yeah.
but I think the same thing happens in uh I think hilariously enough, and I mean like not to shit on the TTB. I love shitting on them, but not to shit on them as much as possible. The same thing happens in the whiskey industry. Like you go through classifications of things. This, for instance, is a 100% Gambrius honey malted whiskey.
Mm.
100%. That's the only malt. So it's technically, according to the TTB, a single malt. But I can't put 100% Gambrius honey malt on the label because I can put that on the back label as
Mm.
ingredients, but I can't put it as the
Advertising.
thing.
Yeah.
So, but also when it comes to the flavor profiles, when people think whiskey, they think brown.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think I mean, I know the whiskey snobs will hate me for this. I think that's a fucking disservice to the whiskey industry at large. And honestly, it's a disservice to so like most of the stuff that I would use as heritage grains in the first place or the heirloom grains, it's a disservice to the grain.
Right.
Because now I'm just making, I mean, for lack of a better term, a tea inside of a
Right.
barrel and giving it a barrel influence that's going to, I mean, not mask all the grain flavor, but I'm giving it oak flavor.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, just give it to me clear, bro.
Right.
Like,
there's times when I kind of go in and out and my mind goes off and then I kind of start overthinking and I'm like, well, of course, am I always thought about, things could be more purist in a way because yeah, if you put it in a bourbon barrel, okay, now it's going to definitely have a different taste and texture. All the things, is that really this type of spirit you're trying to do? Like nobody's putting vodka in a bourbon barrel because that's not a profile. But a lot of rum. Hey, listen, JJ, there's your idea. There, let's try something new here. Let's make some vodka, throw it in a barrel, little char on it, and it's a new thing, right?
yeah. Well, but it's crazy to me that like so like a brand like an established brand that's been around for I don't know how long has Hampton Distillery been around? It's been around for
Yeah.
190 years.
Yeah.
An established brand, a brand that used to make spirits for the fucking United Kingdom.
Yep.
At large has a clear spirit that tastes better than, let's not, let's put a conservative percentage. It tastes better than 35 to 38% of the brown shit that's out there that's been aged. Why aren't we drinking it? And why do I have to special order it in my control state?
Right. Well, there was a I'm drawing a blank now on the rum I saw last year at an event, and it ended up being it was a clear. It ended up being the finished
Mm-hmm.
product was clear, but it was aged in a barrel, and they charcoal filtered to get get the color out, and then put it in a bottle. And you're like, why is this clear spirit taste like it should be a darker color? And it's kind of it's a mind fuck because you have a perceived notion already what certain things should be, and then something like that flips the script and thinking this isn't what I'm drinking, right? So I don't know.
No, this is it right here.
Yep.
This is a clear apple pie,
Hmm.
and it's been made by apple, like 100% apple juice and apples, and then I throw a couple of handfuls of chocolate malt and a couple of handfuls of caramel malt into the ferment. It ferments. Whoever distills it, then it goes and it ages on oak, lightly toasted American oak. You put apples in it, put a little bit of cinnamon, cardamom,
Hmm.
etc., and then it sits and macerates, and then it gets redistilled, and it's clear apple pie.
Hmm.
So when people taste it, they're like, "Where the fuck did the oak come from? Like, how did?" Well, but that's the understanding that when you invest the time to like go down that rabbit hole where it's like, what flavors can I harness and carry over in this vapor? Like,
Yeah. It's
there's
endless. It's endless, right?
it really is.
They talk about that like in Haiti, right? I mean, it's almost as much as Haiti could be a really rough place to go visit, but it'd be like one of those things to go to the where where Claire and the distilleries, and again, I know it's made up of smaller little family farms, and that they kind of there's a whole kind of cool aspect. I guess they're all working together, and but yeah, they're talking about that. There's maybe a papaya tree that's growing, or this or that, and it's just the nature. It takes in the nature and the characters. So it may not be the next time they do all that processing. It may not taste the same exactly from the previous one because it's
But that's the
taking.
thing, Paul. That's the thing, Paul, is like, if you look at the American whiskey culture, and like, trust me, I make, especially now because I've been invested in this distillery that I'm working with, like, you make a good whiskey, it's, as a clear spirit, I like it better. But the thing about that industry is that it started with farm distilleries. And those farm distilleries, yeah, they all grew, like, one guy was growing barley, one guy was growing corn, one guy was growing rye,
Right.
and they all had surplus crops and got together. So the taste profile year over year was, oh, well, I had more surplus rye this year, so it became high rye. I just had more corn this year, so now I guess we'll call it bourbon. Or I had, or I had more wheat this year. And it's like, but that is the spirit that is behind spirits. I
Hmm.
mean, in as much as the name evokes that, like, it is the spirit of the people who are making it. It's the spirit of the place they're making it and the ingredients that they're gathering together to put inside of the damn thing. Like,
Right.
and people got to start recognizing that within the industry, everybody's had a 51% corn bourbon. Yeah, it's the same mash bill as MGP's making, and we put it on wood for 6 years, and it it tastes good. It's kind of the same. It's like, let's start using, like the Jamaicans do, like, and like I like to do with rum, a muck pit.
Yep.
bro, I do a whole fermentation of straight blackstrap molasses, and then once that's done fermenting, you add muck from the muck pit and infect that bitch. Like, what? Wait, you're doing what? It's like, no, that's what gives it all the
Right?
shit that
Yeah.
you like.
Yep.
Like,
But I guess JJ, right? It's tough where it's people are. I know. I don't want to say conditioned, but there's a certain taste profile, and whereas maybe in other parts of the world there's a different palate. Again, it's all about the palates, but over time, let's say here in the U.S., right? Again,
yeah,
people don't realize rum was before whiskey became
yeah,
whiskey world here, and rum was
light years.
right. I mean, I know there's a lot of things and baggage that comes with the rum history, but and then rum kind of went away in certain things, and then it's kind of starting to come back, and but that's what people are accustomed to, and again, a lot of heavy marketing and heavy this, and this is what you're supposed to drink, and this is what it's supposed to taste like, and then it's like, no, it isn't not. So yeah, it's a great that it's a wild west of different things, and especially some talk. I love talking to distillers because the folks that are the distillers, you know, there's that creativity, that passion. There's a craft, right, to making something
hmm
that it's yours. You made this, and you're very obviously everyone's proud in what they do, and I can tell you were very proud in your product. So
Well, I think it speaks. It also speaks to like I was on that Moonshiner Master Distiller.
yep,
I mean, like you think about like the moniker Moonshiner, and it's like, well, it's
yeah,
old white dudes in overalls with long gray
and no
beards,
shirts and no
and
shirts on.
no shirts, yeah, no shirts on, right? And they're running shine in the backwoods, and it's like I I look at it, and if you can bring up the storied past of rum. Rum was one of the most heavily bootlegged
Oh yeah,
things on ships with sails, not NASCARs.
yep,
You're talking ships with sails. They were bootlegging that shit around the world.
right, and that's where
Not in
that's where we
the
got the term rum runner from, right? Yep, yep,
exactly. So like, screw being a bootlegger. I want to be a rum runner. Like that story past is like way deeper in my
right,
opinion.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah, the history. And yeah, so speaking of, let's come back there because I think it's a good segue into obviously getting into this, how you got into distilling, the interest, and kind of the bug that you got bit, and taking it easy, not going too head first into it, and then
Yeah.
obviously I know mentioned on the show, which we'll talk a little bit about, is the Moonshiner show. Was I know you made a reference to when you were building. I don't want to give away too much, but when you were building
Yeah.
your still was, you mentioned that, like, yeah, I know a thing about copper fittings, and I'll make this work. I was like, so anyway, I don't want to give away too much, but yeah. So you mentioned you make you work with a distiller. So that's the question that I have with like people that go on the show. Some do have a background or have a business versus some that are still. I'm not saying backwoods.
Outlaws.
Yeah, yeah,
Outlaws.
yeah. I'm not
That's
trying
how
to.
they put it.
Yeah, I'm not saying backwoods in a bad way of saying it, but again, that's kind of what it is. But how do people get on that show that
So
without
the
allegedly, and without incriminating themselves with a three-letter government agency showing up?
yeah, yeah. So I think there's a misguided perception. And this is one thing that like I will profess till the day I die. I know there's a lot of people out there that do the same thing as me. Um, the last count that I had from a very reputable source, and not that I do any of this, but the last count that I had, there's about 750,000 home distillers in the United States of America.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a
Um,
lot.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and I would say out of that 750,000, I mean, there's probably, I would say 746,999 that have absolutely nothing to do with the illicit monikers that people label them with, like Moonshiner
Right.
or Outlaw or whatever. They're just people. I mean, honestly, and this I know this sounds terribly boring. They're just people who tried making beer and like their first beer got an infection and they were like, fuck making
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah. Right.
Like, but at the same time, it lends itself to you know, something like this show where when I applied, so you apply to be on the show, like you send an email to the casting call director, and I sent an email to the casting call director, like no face, no name, no nothing. I was just like, hey, look,
Just
I I literally put in there. I was like, the only thing I put in there was, and which probably got me on the show, so I don't really care. It was like, I'm a veteran. I went to Afghanistan a few times. I would love to be on the show, which I mean worked out for me.
right. Yeah.
But at the same time, there was I asked the woman who produces it how many applicants they had for the overall season, and she said that they had like 60,000 applicants.
Jeez. That, okay, let's pause there to and do like you said, no, do the numbers. So these means that
Do the math,
yeah.
man.
So it means that there are some that are like I've seen some shows where they've come in and they have their own distillery. They're actually a business. Those are always the ones I'm like, man, they can't blow this because it's dangerous going onto a show where you're a again, I use probably the wrong terms to define somebody. Like I want to say credible, and again, then it just diminishes others. But
But
that's not the word. I think you know where I'm going with it. Like an
yeah,
established, right?
yeah.
It's like you go on
Yeah,
an
an
established,
established distiller.
and
Yeah, I mean,
you lose to the guy who's doing in the backyard. That
yeah,
says, but again, it's like all the other shows. You got a certain amount of time. There's pressure, and I know there's editing, and I'm sure you'll share some of the secrets there. But but yeah, but sorry, go ahead, JJ.
no, I look at it and I'm like,
Sixty
so
thousand, yeah.
out of 60,000 cats, and I mean, I knew that they also had a back pool or a backlog of people whom they had been wanting to get on the show as well. So like, that's not even including those people. So it's like, okay, well, what qualifies you to do it? I thought that struck lucky because I fell into the veteran category, which is great. But at the same time, I don't know that they, out of those 60,000, like how many people were willing to swing for the fences?
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
and that to me is the whole point of doing the majority of any of like I used to do a barbecue with my dad. Like my dad would be like, "Oh, we would go to the big barbecue competition and be like, you can't change the rest. The sauce recipe is the sauce recipe is the sauce recipe." And I'm like, "Bro, like it, but if we put a little bit of cumin powder and we do this and we like tweak it just a little bit, make it a little bit sweeter, I know where we're at, and they like sweet,
Right.
you know." Uh, so the same thing with the competition where it's like introduce they I don't know how many people were in that pool that were like ready to introduce something new or different or maybe not liked in terms of like profile but were willing to do it,
Right.
you know. Like
And I think you mentioned that on the the Nooner Nation show. There was from a couple weeks ago was yeah, you got to go out there and swing for the fences. This is the opportunity. You're in front of the camera. People get your recognition. You got to go for it here. Not you got to go in. You got to go into as you're talking about the barbecue. You got to go into it with the mindset you're here to win. And kick ass and take names. In a not a dickish kind of way, but you're here to shine. You shine. Yeah, there you go. No pun intended. No pun intended. No, that slipped out. That was. I didn't mean that. That's not my script here.
Shine on.
That's right. Yeah. Oh Jesus. So yeah.
But
So
I'm
yeah. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just thinking about it, like and being on, like, getting the opportunity, like when I got the phone call to go and do it, after a semi laborsome or cumbersome like interview and screening casting call process, like to be able to go and do it, I think for me, uh it gave me the credibility to like do what I intended to do, anyways, like, but it
Right.
just gave me more credibility. So like, I'm working right now and putting out a legal bottle and working on, mash bills for more, sanctioned things.
Right.
Like I think it just, if you want the confidence, this distilling industry is is just like everything else. Like, I'm a professional salesperson by trade and for a living. Like, if you want to do anything where you're going to be successful, like, you've got to establish that credibility. And
Yep.
hilariously
Yep.
enough, like, this show has done that for a lot of folks. Like, I think there's probably, out of the, I guess at this point, 70 episodes, I think they have, there's probably like 30 distilleries that have opened up out
Right.
of like
That's
the people who've been on those shows.
yeah,
Like,
and right. I know you, as you said, that you were kind of half serious, half joking, taking a shot at it. There's some that maybe go on to it full in because the reward is it is like I said. There's the other side of that. You have the recognition, the name, getting your product in into their distribution and into their place. Um, and I was thinking about this the other day. Was another reality show, which somewhat loose. Anyway, reality show. It was a repeat of Shark Tank, and they showed an episode where it was kind of like we brought the guy back. So they all turned down this guy's product. They all said no, and this doesn't make sense. Why would you need this? He left, didn't get a deal. Somehow got a deal lined up, and it ended up being the Ring camera. They passed on the concept of the Ring camera. So again, he comes back on, and they're like, "Yeah, they kind of screwed that one up. They didn't see that one." And sure enough, we all know what it turned into. He had a different name, I guess whatever it was,
yeah,
but they rebranded and named and so forth. But it's like that's what it became. So, but I think also, from what I understand, I could be wrong, I could be right, is the same thing. They go on to those shows, and even if they don't get a deal or whatnot, I think ABC still gets a little bit of something. There's, of course, you're getting on. At least if you get on the show, and even if you don't get anything out of it, you're still getting something out of it because now you're on Shark Tank, as seen on Shark Tank, even if you didn't get an actual deal, right? So I could see it. Even
yeah.
if you've been on the show, or people, if they did win the competition, they were still a master distiller. I had a guy, one of my guests early on. He lives here in my town. He was a contestant on Hell's Kitchen. You know, and
Yeah, same type of deal. And I look at it, to be like totally honest, I love the exposure. I think it has done a great service for me. I think that, the show itself, there I mean, there really aren't any losers, in my opinion. Like, you're you
right,
get to do a legal run of liquor on TV,
yeah,
like, legal, sanctioned. Like, you do the mash bill, like, you do all the steps that is according to the TTB. Like, there's somebody watching you, like, chill your, use your wort chiller and like pitch your yeast and do all the shit. But at the same time, like, the off-camera stuff is if they're filming 5 other episodes of this show around you, bro, all of you guys are at the hotel every night together.
yeah,
And the amount of like distilling knowledge,
yeah,
whether it's legal, because half of the motherfuckers are legal, like, head distillers at big places sometimes. And then the other half of us are like, oh, like, some of us have been doing it for 5 years, some of us have been doing it for 35 years.
right.
So like that amount of knowledge packed into one place, man, I learned so freaking much
Right.
just sitting. I of course I cooked barbecue as a baptism to them on what shit should taste like. Uh but I mean like that knowledge, I would take that over winning anything every day. Like
Right.
to have that amount of people that have it's not it everybody says industry knowledge. Like industry knowledge is shit you go to marketing folks with. That's industry knowledge. Like what's gonna sell? Does your label what does your label look like? What how are you branding?
I get
But
it. I know it's terminology is used. I hear what you're saying. I agree what you're saying, and I also agree that it is probably a term that's poorly utilized, overutilized in the wrong context, right? I
yeah.
do agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Again, to industry knowledge. Okay, your craft knowledge, or yeah, your again, everybody's got to get thrown into the right bucket of things to we're all supposed to belong to something, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
but and it's awesome when I see a lot of that. When I go to the rum events here in Florida or talk to others. There was one back in Miami event that I went to in November, and they did a seminar there, and the owner of Maison Fran, the owners of the owner of Plantation Rum, right? Let's just make it easy.
Yeah.
He was
Okay.
there, and they were talking. It was mostly a seminar session of plantation stuff, talking about the history. And dude, that's one I was like, man, I would love to go to Plantation, just hear the stories and see the production, see the bark betas and all that stuff. And there was a couple other distillers there were there in the audience, I guess, attending that session, and they were just taking it all in. They're like, okay, you were learning at the feet of people that have been doing it for, as a company have been hundreds of years and in a larger scale, and you're asking questions, and he they were very open about. They're like, hey, I had this question, and it's great that they're not so worried about, oh, I don't want to tell you because you make it's so, which is really cool. As what you're describing there is that there's a brotherhood, or a a real kinship of people that are enjoying each other, or asking questions and learning. And again, there's nobody should be afraid of anybody, because if anyone's afraid of any of the spirits that each person probably makes, then you should be worried. You need to step up your game. If you're not thinking that your stuff is the shit, everyone should be thinking that, right?
Dude, I mean like I think it took me several years to like believe that about myself, but like going there and everybody says also like, oh well, the judges are just these guys from this Moonshiners show, and what do they know? They don't know shit. Like they're just hillbillies from the woods, and it's like the so like the generations of gentlemen and women who have placed their time and effort into making what we call American whiskey or bourbon, American whiskey and bourbon, that is these guys.
Mhm.
Like, fight me or not about it, like, go ahead. But, like, just like for Digger and Mark Wayne Ramsey and Digger Manus, like, those two guys worked with Popcorn Sutton, like, and he was a notorious moonshiner for decades. Like, people were buying his stuff because it tasted good, but he got his information from somebody before him, who got it from somebody before them,
Yeah,
and it's like that's the American whiskey story,
right.
but it got suppressed because of all the laws.
Mhm.
But that's the American whiskey story. It's not like some of these distilleries, and not to hate, I'm not hating. I just think it's poignant to, or I think it's pointed to point out that like some of them went illegal during Prohibition, and then like 2 years into Prohibition came through and were like, oh well, we'll make medicinal whiskey. And then they opened back up and made medicinal whiskey. And then after Prohibition, because they were making medicinal whiskey during Prohibition, Bro, they were big. They were the biggest cats on campus. They
Right.
didn't even have like because they had that established thing
It was a
because
head
of
start.
all.
Yeah.
It was a head start,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's like just like with rum, there's so many ways to skin the American whiskey story cat. But I think what you have to understand is that like the base knowledge around all of this entire industry is captured in the people whom are doing it. And I think that with this show, the Master Distiller show in particular, they do it well enough in a 45-minute show to capture the people whom are making the thing that it gives a voice to the spirits that people are consuming. Like I know if I sat down or if I was sitting and I was watching a Super Bowl commercial that wasn't was it Ryan Reynolds.
Hmm.
Ryan Reynolds was Aviation Jim.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I love me some Ryan Reynolds. But who is the person that's made? I know the story, like the real story behind Aviation Gin, but I want to know the distiller and like, bro, what
Yeah.
botanicals are you using? Like,
Yeah.
tell me the process
Right.
because that shit is what gives it value to me. Not Ryan Reynolds telling me some jokes.
Right.
That's great for branding, and that'll get you. People think that that gets you sales. That gets you on the shelf. I know that from like sales experience. That'll get you on the shelf. That doesn't mean it's going to sell
Right.
because in a state like where I live at, where there's a control board, you can only get on the shelf so many places. That'll get you on the shelf, but is it going to sell?
Right. You got to move.
I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah. You got to still
You got
move.
to move it.
You can move. And yeah, heavily marketing. Yeah, a lot of the celebrity. What involvement? You're right. I mean, no celebrity is
Well,
actually.
how many celebrity rum brands have you tasted? Not, like I said, we're not hating you. We're not hating.
I, let's see. Sorry. So at least Sammy's Beach Bar stuff, right? Bruno
Yeah.
Mars. Why am I drawing a blank? That's the two that come to mind real easy. So
There's more tequilas than there are rums. I,
yeah,
I, I
yeah,
think right at this
yeah.
point, just because tequila is like this shit is taking off, man.
Hey,
Like,
well, it's funny is that I know we're getting way off topic here, but I
I
remember
know.
remember like 10, like maybe 10, 15 years, however long ago. I remember hearing the story that because even back, so it's not so recent, but further back that there was a concern about a tequila shortage because the agave wasn't keeping up with the demand, or they didn't see it becoming a boom. And then it takes 7 years to harvest, agave to make the tequila and yada yada yada. And but again, you're right. It's a whole boom, and there's a distributor here in locally that I do some live streaming with, and he said the same thing. He goes, man, if I can just get a tequila company, because these Mexican restaurants, it almost doesn't even matter what it is or whatever. It's another brand that they can put up, and they have it. It's like that's kind of crazy,
I
but
think it's one of those things where with that industry, like I said, not to get too off topic. My buddy GP, he was a Marine. He's a combat wounded dude. He was on Master Distiller on the tournament. It was the tournament that was the 3 episodes before that one I was on. Uh, he makes tequila, and he's got his own distillery essentially and brand out in Southern California. And I mean, he told me like, and a lot of other people have told me like, if you're so tequila is one thing, but if you're gonna make fucking mezcal, because to not all no mezcal is tequila, but all tequila is mezcal, I guess,
okay, yeah,
is the way it's generalized. But basically, you don't have to use the blue agave in like a mezcal. You can use other different agave plants, different peñas from different agave plants, And he was like, bro, they grow everywhere around Southern California.
Hmm.
Like all the different types of agave grow everywhere. And it's like you can harvest 100 different types of agave and freaking roast it, ferment it,
Yeah, because
distill it.
I mean I know most of it's made in Mexico, right? But I mean I guess is there actually again I'm asking because I'm this is a rum show.
But nah, this is wrong. But I mean, like same thing. Like so with the tequila, like they're in the mezcal category according to TTB because that's the only way that it's regulated. There's tequila and then there's mezcal, right? But in the mezcal category, it doesn't have to be the blue agave peñas that they're using. It can be I don't know the variety. I'm not a horticulturist, but like all they can be like all different varieties of
Right.
agave peñas. Like
Right.
there's probably hundreds. Like
Ale-
the aloe plants and shit. All that shit is all agave essentially.
all
Like
tied to it.
it's all tied to the same type of plant.
Yeah. All
But the
right.
same thing with rum. I mean, look at rum, bro. Like there's people using cane juice,
Yep.
jaggery, blackstrap. Like
It's just,
the list is, you know,
it's not
it's endless
it's not
almost.
one single thing that you can fit it into the box, even though there's more of like we talked about, more of a geographic push to put a GI, a geographic index, indicator on it, as opposed to like we said, gold or white or silver or whatever the case may be, spiced. Again, technically, spiced rum isn't actually technically rum, but it's called rum. And hey, I got a question for you. When and this I know it's been like this for a while, but this is probably like a couple of years ago. That hit me was I'm like walking in the liquor store. I'm like, when the hell did Kahlua become rum? Or at least it's on the label. It's on the front of the label. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, so it just kind of, anybody calls,
So have
you
you
can put rum on any of the labels and you talk about the labeling. I don't know why, how some of it gets away with it. But again, there's no,
well
I don't know.
that's like 90% of these. I mean, like from what I have found and like looked into, is that like 90% of these RTDs that are on the market, they all use a rum based spirit for their RTD.
Right.
Whether it's, I mean, because it's the most available. So, like, history of rum, like, I am a history buff, but I'm not like, you know, super well versed. But from what I know, like, even look at Hampton, like, up until a couple of years ago, I think something like 60% of their product they would ship to Europe to be used in the perfume industry. Nobody knew that.
Yeah.
Like, nobody, like, still no, like, you go and you look at, like, the quote unquote mash bills for perfume for, like, Givenchy and all the French shit. And it's like, oh, heavy ester, high ester rum. It's like, oh, where did you get the pineapple smell from? Well, they fermented it down there and then they shipped it to your ass. Like, that's how that shit happened.
Hey, JJ, listen, don't call me out if I spill my rum drink all over me and, people think that I've put some cologne on, okay? Don't call me out, okay? Or maybe
but
that's a
that's
good call.
but once you get, like, literally, if some people like notice that in their head, like Chanel number 9, I think it is. If you knew that part of that or some of your favorite scents had heavy, high ester Jamaican rum in it, if you knew it and then you smelled it, you'd be like, shit, there's fucking rum in this. And I
Get
did
me
it.
some
And
Coke.
I went to Nordstrom's and I was like, bro, like, oh my God, there's rum. This is rum in this. There's rum in this one. There's rum in, and then you get on the website and you're like, oh, there is. There's rum in this
Interesting.
one. There's rum in this one. There's rum in this one. And it's like that was the industry for that product beyond the rum runners
Mm-hmm.
who are selling it for consumption.
That's it.
Or
I didn't
like
know
for
that.
drinking.
I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting. Cool. All right,
But
man.
sorry.
No,
There's so many
that's
rabbit
no,
holes.
that's cool. No, I guess I've never heard anybody talk about that, and I mean it's one of those. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be surprising, but again, if there's anything that has any level of alcohol, it's got to come from something, from some type of process that we're sipping on, similarly sipping on. So JJ, let me
Yeah.
ask you about. All right, so again, I don't want to give away too much. Again, if people haven't seen the show already, yeah, I don't know, man. It's so your what you made on the show. So it was
Mhm.
what'd you call it? It was s'mores whiskey.
Well, I
Okay.
started with a base, which I do. I called it the chocolate smoke bomb bourbon for the show. I mean, like you can put whatever fucking name. Like I'm a showman. I don't care. Essentially, it's like a Scotch mash bill,
Mm,
pretty much. But I used, I think it was 75% malted blue corn, 75% malted blue corn, 20% heavy peated smoked, heavy peated malted barley, and then 5% chocolate malted barley. So for dramatization purposes, I called it this chocolate smoke bomb bourbon because it's high corn, right?
right.
Uh, but so I started with the base of that, and then I had done some experimentation of because they want to do a flavoring run, like
Mm,
that's the thing. So like down south in like Tennessee and like you go to Gatlinburg, the majority of shit is like candy in a jar, right? Like that's what they promote. Like it's candy in a jar. What flavors can you get today? It's like sour apple, blueberry
right.
muffins. Like so I thought to myself, I was like, well, I don't know anybody out there who's doing a s'more. I'm gonna try it, experiment, and see if there's a s'more that I can do. So I infused after distilling. I had infused my low wines and ran it through some marshmallow fluff and graham cracker crumbs and other sundries to
I think
achieve this.
their minds were blown when they saw you bust out the fluff. They're like, and the graham crackers. They're like, what are you making over there? But
Well, this is the jar. This is the jar of what's left because they don't show it. So TV Magic, they drank like I don't know how many production people drank part of this jar,
oh,
but
okay.
there was like it was when I got it back, it was not where it was when they showed it on the fucking clip where it's like, we're back. It was like down to here, bro. I was like, who drank all the
Yeah.
damn booze I just made?
I'm yeah,
This is
because
ridiculous.
there's got to be a lot of fucked up people running around because they're all that stuff is over 100 proof,
uh
right?
yeah. Oh, my shit when it was coming off on that second run, dude, I was lucky. I was lucky if it was coming off under 170, bro. Like
Wow. Wow.
Like, and I
Whew.
proofed it down with spring water, but like, yeah, yeah.
And when you do that, because I don't remember if I've ever seen any Hoons come on the show and actually did their own like measurements, checking the proof or anything. And most of it is the distillers are all just kind of by feel and by taste. Oh, okay. You are using one or
No,
oh, okay.
no. This is what I do and check all of my things by normally,
Right.
but they want you to be the master of the bead, right? Shake it. It's got big bubbles, it's got little bubbles. How long do the little bubbles last?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to figure it out from there.
Yeah, and that's a part.
So
Yeah, people don't. They watch the show. They probably don't quite get that. I mean, that's an interesting thing. The shaking of the bottle. It's not just for cool for TV. It's an actual
yeah,
legit thing, right?
I mean you can get like I can probably well mostly because I know what these are, but I mean like you can figure out really close and get really really good at it within like I don't know, 3%
Oh wow.
is I think the closest that I've ever seen somebody do it. Like where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be 95%, and it's like, oh, it's 96 or
Wow.
98.
That's
You know,
that's pretty impressive. So yeah,
yeah.
I enjoyed it again. I know it was part of the show, and I do watch the show, and it was actually cool to see somebody. And I was telling him, we were sitting there watching it last night, and my kids walked in. I'm like, hey, I said, I'm going to interview that guy tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I'm interviewing that guy on TV. There, the guy in the orange
That guy
shorts.
in
The
the
guy in the
guy in
orange.
them short shorts.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're
Everybody knows.
yeah, if you haven't,
Everybody knows it.
yeah. So if you're listening to this or watching the video, there, if you haven't seen this episode yet with on the Discovery Channel, go watch it on demand or whatnot, or on the website. I don't know, wherever you can find it nowadays.
Discovery
Yeah,
Plus. I
you got to
think
check
it's
out.
going to be on there soon.
You got to check out JJ's legs. He's showing a lot of legs in this this episode.
What was that? Your boy that lives down by you, Lance Liggett from Thigh Huggers. I think he lives down in.
Why's the name
He
sound
lives
in Florida?
he lives in Florida. He lives in I think he lives outside of Orlando or something.
Okay.
By that joint, but yeah, his whole company, Thigh Huggers, they're right out of there.
I know. Like I said, because of I know Eric and and
Yeah.
the couple of the people, and again watch the Drinking Bros and the other shows and so forth. I learned so much about the the military without actually have been in the military, but some of the interesting things and so forth. But
It's all about the short shorts, thighs out, skies out.
that's I think you really definitely threw him for a loop when you were giving him a hard time about the sun's out, guns out. He was asking, he's like, thighs out, skies out. I was like, that's a new
Well,
one.
I told it like, and that's like the TV magic of the thing, because it was like, because he asked me, well, number one of the cats literally like they were walking in, we were all, off camera, you had to wear the mask, and like we did like a million COVID tests and all this shit. But like one cat walked up to me, I think it was Mark Wayne Ramsey. He walked up to me off camera, and the first thing he said to me when he met me, he like shook my hand. He's like, well, thank you for your service. And then he goes, well, what happened to the rest of your britches? So when Tim said that shit on the show, I was like, when he's like, are those Army issued? I was like, skies out, thighs out. And that's why I was like, hey, bro, if you lend me some of your, or if I lend you some of my shirt, I'll lend you some of my pants, right?
Oh my god, that's funny. That's funny. So yeah, so it sounds like it's I know a lot of times people go on the reality shows or TV, and it kind of turns out not to be how they how the finished product portrayed them, and sometimes but it sounds like it was it turned out you were pleased with the output, the product, the results of the show. We won't say again, we won't say if
Yeah.
you were the winner or not. So you all have to go check out that episode there, and follow everything. We'll get to the shameless plugs at the end here, but yeah,
Oh,
it was definitely, like I said, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I watch the show every so, and that's why I'm always, and I said Diaz is. So exactly, how does this all work? Because if people walk in the storyline, it's like, yeah, I'm making my backwoods, and I was like, how does somebody not walk into it? It's like a Dateline, there's a sting operation for pedophiles. You're walking into this show on TV.
You don't want to walk. You don't want to walk into the buzzsaw, right? Like, and that's what I. So I think the biggest thing about it is like when I agreed to do it, I was like, this cannot be exploitative. Like I know a lot of cats. And there's been episodes of that show where it's like a lot of cats let it be like people will exploit you at every turn, like no matter what. So like not letting it be exploitative of me was kind of my goal, but also to like I wanted it to be a building block for further things to come. And that's how I approached it. And I think like more people, I mean, unless you're on like was that Married at First Sight or whatever? Like, I guess you got problems. But like, I think there's more like any of these shows where it's like cooking or baking or whatever. Like, don't let it be exploitative of you. You have what you have, and you're there because most of you are there because you know what the fuck you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
like, or you have a really great personality.
Right.
But you know, use shit to your advantage. Like I encourage everybody who has even a platform like a podcast, like use stuff to your advantage, man. Like you never know what could come of all of this on the back end,
Right.
right?
I I I think that's an excellent point, JJ, is you never know. Take every opportunity like it could be your last, and because you never know if this could be the one or that was the right moment that you may have missed and not realized it, right? Is yeah, I think that's a perfect
Bro, I
yeah.
told my wife years ago, I was like, bro, I used all my nine, or I used eight of my 9 lives uh serving in the army. I was like, I got this last one left to go, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna take the opportunities that I feel like
Yeah.
I can take advantage of, and this was one of them. So
Right. So before we get into some of the wrap up here and the rapid fire again, is I'm glad again I did my homework again when you reached out to me and like your tag on in the chat there for failure to stop show was high, high and angry, and I was like, okay, I'm not quite sure what I'm getting into here, and you explained it right, and again on the show why the name and so forth, which is kind of cool. So I guess that this isn't too much of a giveaway then too. Again, tell me again where High and Angry comes from.
yeah, man, high and angry it was. So I used to at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I used to have to get a haircut every week. I used to go to a little Korean barber shop that was on Yadkin Road outside of Fort Bragg, and you could literally tell the broad like, I want the highest, angriest, high and tight that I can get. And the little Korean lady would put her hand on top of your head with her like 4 fingers on top, and she would just cut around it and fade it all the way up to the top of her hand. And I mean, my soldiers called it, my high and angry, high and tight, because it was high and it made me look angry as fuck. So
And it wasn't because you had really like you're driving in a convertible and your hair kind of goes all over, jumping out of a perfectly good
no,
airplane, right? Without a
no, it was not as we call that so there's a difference between like what you got to do in the 82nd Airborne every day, and then on Fort Bragg, that's also the home of Special Operation Forces, like in training. So those guys have what we call the Special Operations Quaff.
mm-hmm.
The whole high and angry haircut thing, kind of came from there, just because my soldiers were like, I mean, they're really adamant. I was admittedly kind of an asshole when I was a sergeant in the army, like, but that's just like the normal airborne infantry way of doing things. So the haircut just kind of fit the mold, and that's how I kind of gained the moniker of high and angry.
Oh my god!
So that's why I said it's not illicit.
I
Not
know.
illicit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so and I did notice, right, is when you brought your jars up to them, you had your logo on the jars. So very good on
Yeah, man.
on your you gotta
Be all about the
for
branding,
sure.
all about the you know.
That's right, man. I love it. I love it.
Well, it was great because they actually said it on air, and I was like, "Oh shit! I didn't know you guys were gonna actually say it." I get it. Hey, thanks for the plug. I mean, I don't know how many people are gonna look it up, but
Right.
thanks for the plug.
Do you know, since it's aired, have you seen a little bit of attraction or hits or lookups, search or whatever?
Not on YouTube, because I didn't like particularly broadcast. I had a podcast on there just because I didn't like. Number one, you don't want to like be broadcasting like, oh look, yes, I have a podcast that I'm doing,
Yeah,
and like,
yeah,
yeah, you don't want to like overplay your hand. But number two, like, I have seen on like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like all of that. So that's definitely been cool just to see.
Yeah, you need to get back on the live streams. I look, I get it.
That's
It's tough. I've got the sympathy, empathy, whatever the word is. There is, it's when you're probably doing it by yourself. You're setting everything up. You're not only the producer, you're the tech guy, you're the star, you're the everything, right? You got to keep the party going. And I hear you, man. I dig that. Like I said, I've watched some of the lives, and I'm like, holy shit, JJ is out there, and I love it. It's like he's a character, man. I said we got to do something together. So, for sure,
definitely,
yeah.
man. I appreciate you having me on. Like I mean, like and somebody asked me one time, they're like, "How do you come up with the ideas that you do?" And the reason for folks listening, the reason I haven't been doing live streams is literally because I'm filming other things,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we'll put that out there right
Okay.
now. I'm filming a couple of other things that will air on television.
Oh, okay. Are you?
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you gonna be in Ross's next movie?
Man, if Homeboy invited me to be in his next movie, I would. But I mean, he gonna have to talk to my agent, man. Like,
Yeah. Come on, Ross. We all want to see another part two of this, right? It's
yeah,
it's crazy, right? So let me real quick, and then we're gonna get to the rapid fire here. So again, all right. So Eric, right? And you guys are, you've been on other podcasts together, and obviously share, the relationship as both serving in the army, and obviously both
yeah,
distillers and so forth, and also podcasters too, right? It's almost you can't see
yeah.
Eric's on everything. So so when I was when I got it, I met Eric first through the rum side of things. He had posted in the Florida Rum Society. And then I saw him post it, and I was like, "Oh, I live in Florida too, and this, and this." And then they kind of started talking. Then we started sharing some messages, text messages, whatever. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm on the show, and I've been doing with these guys." And he starts talking about the Drinking Bros, and I start watching the shows and so forth, learning more about that. And again, I know maybe because I'm not ex military, is some of the references and kind of understand some of the life and some of the things y'all had probably gone through. But anyway, so it's fun from time to time, right? So it was a rum side of things, and then started following when he did his tailgate show, started doing it at the Failed Stop, and continue on and so forth. So the crazy thing is when he was kind of giving me a little backstory about all the Drinking Bros and Ross and everything else, the whole how it all started. I said, okay, I always knew there was a Black Rifle Coffee seemed to be a kind of tie to things.
hmm
And I said, holy shit, I've watched, the movie before I even know who these guys were. And I think it was because of Matt and all his
Oh,
crazy,
Matt Best.
right, all his videos. I used to watch all his stuff, and I was like, on Facebook and YouTube, whatever. And I was like, oh, they're coming out with this cool show. And again, I didn't know. It's just the little small world, I guess you kind of call it that.
Dude,
You know,
it's the smallest world. It's the smallest world possible because, I mean, I was at Fort Bragg when the dudes from Ranger Up, Nick Polisamo, and those dudes started doing YouTube videos, and we were all like, we all saw them on YouTube. We were like, bro, you're in Ranger Panties on YouTube. Like, I mean, like, I was like, I would be in Ranger Panties on YouTube. I don't really give a fuck.
right?
But like, they're doing like the punch out, go to work thing, and like all the
Yeah,
fucking stupid but hilarious stuff.
right.
Like, who would have thought that whole, like, I guess, content creator
Hmm.
veteran movement would have, like, blossomed into what it
Right.
is now, and like, that's a wave, man. Like, unfortunately, I missed it because I had other things going
Hmm.
on. But
Yeah, it's
hopefully this, like, distiller, like, I think there's a wave of distillers, craft distillers, home distillers. There's a movement and a wave on the internet that's happened over the past 3 to 4 years that I don't know. I think it's just like that kind of same blossoming. Like,
right.
you look at guys like, I don't know if you ever watched Bearded and Bored.
Mm.
great, great YouTube channel. Guy is so humble, so cool. I mean, Jesse from Still It, George Duncan from Barley and Hops. Then you got Steelworks and Brewing. That guy is like, he's just doing his thing, man. And all those guys have over like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Right. And that's
they all start
right. And it's at that point, right? People, I explain to people, I'm like, hey, help me get to 1,000, right? And again, it's a number that helps.
That's it.
It's a number that helps when you're talking to advertisers outside of the YouTube space. Talk to people. You have 1,000 subscribers, right? That's a number. I mean, I know there's always the things that you probably get them to on Instagram where like, hey, give me $25 and I'll boost you up and
I'll boost your post.
Right. Or no, I'll get you followers. And there is a temptation part of it because then it's a sense of, yes, you can present. But, at the end of the day, the struggle is trying to explain to people that are still in traditional format is, well, what is the brand? If I sponsor you or advertise with you, what am I getting out of it? What's my return? And there's a lot that don't understand that YouTube is the new format because there's a lot of look. If the best way to explain it is he got in early was Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, right? Yeah. The eyeballs on his stuff. That's it right there, and that's how everybody's trying to want to be a Joe Rogan. Everybody wants to be a Mr. Beast, but
I know. I don't want to plug everybody, but like I gotta plug a few people. Like Philbilly Moonshine. Look up Philbilly Moonshine. I've met the dude in person. I've talked with him ad nauseum. Like we're on a messaging thread together. Like Philbilly Moonshine 3 or 4 years ago had like 100 subscribers. He's up to like 50K right now.
Wow.
And it's literally because of this. I mean, I call it the craft distillers movement. Like beer brewers had the home brewing movement.
Yeah.
Winemakers had, I'm going to make my own saisons or whatever I don't even know wine that much, but whatever. I'm going to make my own Syrah in my basement. Yeah. Like, where's our movement? Like, it needs to happen.
Yeah, I think it's happening. I know versus craft at the different levels. Because again, talking to some of the other company, folks that are here in Florida that are making their own, that and I explained that there's some, and I didn't know until I got into this that there was such a thing. I would just assume, oh, you have a rum brand. Oh, that you have a distillery. Can I come visit a distillery? Well, and then it's like, oh, when I start learning, oh, this contract distilling and all these other things.
Yeah,
because and then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You want a rum brand, but it costs a lot of money to start up a distillery.
But then also, a lot of those guys started their recipes not in a distillery, and that's the point that I think needs to be driven home is that if we want the craft distillers movement to happen, then we need to enable craft distillers, aka the same thing that happened in the home brew industry. We need to enable people to be able to create in that space outside of the parameters of what those agencies require. Because if without that, you're gonna get the same. So for all the bourbon drinkers out there, without that, you're going to get the same 51% yellow dent corn, fucking 30% rye.
Yeah, because none of them, right? Because none of them are willing to take the risk to take a step to the side and try something. The craft homebrew guys, or craft, and you know what I mean.
Well, how do you think we all got to love hops?
Yeah, right.
We all love hops. We all love hops now, not because of Anheuser-Busch, not because of fucking Coors, not because of... We all love hops because somebody was in their garage and was like, oh man, I think I added too much. I guess we'll see what it tastes like. And then, oh, I guess it tastes pretty good. I'm going to make another batch just like that one. And then they made another batch just like that one. And then they made one with more hops. And they were like, this is This is high hops. This is what do they call those?
Double IPAs.
Yeah, double IPA.
Yeah.
Ooh, we just did something different. It's like, let us do that
Yeah.
because we will make you some shit that you ain't even. It'll be a. We'll take Elon Musk to the moon with our shit.
So again, to just to kind of come back in there, and I think where you're going, where you mentioned again, listening to the Nooner Nation podcast you were on recently, what you explained, it wasn't so much about being dangerous, whatever. It was the concern about the methanol, and you're going to go blind. You're making bathtub gin, whiskey, whatever, and you're going to go blind and all that. It's such a small thing, and again, if you're the worst of it is up front, and in distilling, right? The heads or the nasty stuff.
The 4 shots,
Yeah.
so the way that people prescribe, I think this is the most I guess kids gloves way to go about it. The way that most people prescribe danger to a thing is with it's like they're putting out a fire. They want to put a big blanket over it, and they want to say they want to extinguish it, right? I think that although that is a proven method of a way to put out a fire, the best way that we all know is to take the fire extinguisher and do like the instructions say, pull the pin and spray it at the base of the fire. But we're not doing that. We're putting a blanket over creativity. We're putting a blanket over people being able to express themselves through a distilled spirit. And at the end of the day, the danger level that's prescribed to something like home distillation or craft distillation, I would like it to be called, you know, I was talking with a bunch of people on a forum. I think something like 99 or 96%, I think the last time I saw was like, we're all running electric. Nobody's running propane. There's no open fire. Like, no. And then, as much as everybody would like to think that, like, oh, you're moonshining, you're in the backwoods. It's like, no. Everybody does it in a warehouse or.
Yeah.
There's nobody. There's nobody really out in the woods doing it. It's sorry. I mean, I'm sorry, but like that's
yeah.
So like the fact of the matter is that like the danger that we trust me, I was in the infantry. I jumped out of fucking airplanes. Like you can prescribe a danger to things where there's no real inherent danger, just so that you mitigate the amount of people that do something. And I feel like maybe it's not the spirits industry, maybe it's not the government, maybe it's not whomever, the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there that are wanting to and willing to express themselves through craft spirits. And I feel like because of the rules and regulations, they're not able to. And I think it's a disservice to the industry, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I'm stepping off.
No, man.
My soapbox.
You're laying it down. Again, JJ, I could, like I said, I know you're passionate. That's why you're very you're you putting it out there. So all right.
No,
so
All
right. So all right. So you ready for the rapid fire? I know again.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. Hold on.
You're a vet, so you're not worried. Again, you jumped out of airplanes, perfectly good airplanes, and so forth. So all right. So these are coming up here in what we call in 4 sips or less.
4 sips or less. Ooh.
Yep. All right. Here. So again, this is a rapid fire. Don't think too much. Don't overdo it. Just kind of first thing that kind of comes to your mind. It could be a short answer or a long answer, but here we go. So in 4 sips or less, we ask all of our spirits guests, I guess we'll call it, is this question here. All right. Neat or on ice?
Neat.
Okay. Very good. All right, here. Let me just update. This is what happens when I go from a drum
Oh, it happens.
a drum guest to a a rum guest. It's like in four beats. Wait a minute, that don't make sense. There we go. All right, we got it fixed. All right, cool. All right, so we're going neat. Okay. All right, tip. In 4 sips or less, number 2 here. All right, so what is a misconception people have about the Army Airborne?
That you jump out of a perfectly good airplane because the majority of the time that airplane is broke as a joke.
Okay. That's fair enough. All right, okay. In 4 sips or less, how much did you get paid for the Iron City beer commercial?
So Iron City liked my video of the Iron City beer commercial, and I actually know the head distiller that's at their new distillery that they're opening up. But alas, they told me that it was not 10-pound sledgehammers, it was 12-pound sledgehammers that they were swinging. So I got it wrong, and they didn't pay me. So.
Oh man, that's on a technicality.
Yeah. They told us, it's not 10s, it's not 12s. But I thought I got it. I thought I nailed it on the head with the "you tell them, Joe."
That's right. Yeah, no, I think you did, man. You were definitely laying it out there, man. Swinging.
Hey, that was me in the woods during COVID.
In the snow.
Okay?
In the snow too.
In the snow. Yeah. Yeah. COVID was flying all around us, and I was in the woods. I was like, I'm gonna make this Iron City.
Yeah, so if you're again, check out the video over on JJ's page there. So search for YouTube High and Angry. All right, last question here. 4 sips or less. What's the most fucked up thing that has happened while distilling?
While distilling, I think everybody that I know has a problem with their hot and chilled water lines that run to your condenser. Whether you're running a deflegmator, which is a condenser that goes at the top of a rectifying column. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but like it's basically a pre-condenser to your actual condenser. But the water lines is a tough thing to get right because most water lines are made out of soft plastic. So if you're running water on that pre-condenser, the effluent water, so the water going out, can get really hot. And I still don't know anybody who has found like a good solution to a 90-degree angle other than using a brass fitting or a hose coming directly off of and then having hot water come down that doesn't just bend and crimp. There's little things like that with like design that are like weird, but like if I were to say like during this, like the last thing, so that's a rabbit hole. There's vapor management and then there's coolant management. I choose coolant management, which has everything to do with your water temperature heading to both of your condensers. You need to be able to regulate that, but if you've got a crimp in one of your hoses, that fucks the whole process up. So
okay, you know that was a very slow 4 sips. You know,
I have a tendency. This is why they have to cut down on my shit on all the other shows that I do, because I have a tendency. I'm trying to give you more.
There you
go. So
go.
then you could cut it to less.
All right, no, that's perfect. So, all right, well, I appreciate you there. Again, you made it through the rapid fire. Again, as all of us, I put them through. The pain and suffering is here. You got your Drums and Rums alum shirt there. I've got some shirts there. Again, our tagline there. Where's the camera there? Where's the backbeats meets the spirits there? So again, I appreciate JJ for coming on. I'll get this shirt out to you eventually. Again, I'm also my own merch guy too. So so I gotta do it all.
You are a champion in my book, sir. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Do you got any Higher and Angry shirts? Right. Let's go talk about the shameless plugs. You got any Higher and Angry shirt? I want a shirt with
So
the logo, right? Yeah.
shameless plugs. I mean, high and angry. I'm high and angry. I mean, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the platforms, Twitch, everything. I don't have merch, but once these other things come out that I'm filming, the merch will probably come after that. I will promote this because it is a shameless plug. I have a legal bottle of 100% malted blue corn whiskey that's coming out through a local distillery here. I'm working with a great partner at Lucky Science Spirits, and so that bottle will be coming out. This is our prototype. It is
very cool.
The Outpost corn whiskey. I'll send you a graphic.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, I took a picture of my first combat outpost in Afghanistan, and my local artist, aka my wife, did a line drawing and really spruced it up and made it look cool as a graphic piece. So that bottle will be coming out. We're fermenting it right now, and it's we'll probably distill it here soon. But yeah, I mean that's really what I've got going on in the works. In the future, we can collab on whatever, bro. Like I said, this industry, especially on this end, needs to remain small in terms of the craft people, the home distiller people. I'm telling you, there's a couple of guys in your backyard, and AKA other people who have been on the Master Distiller show that are in your backyard that I think you should. I'll tell you off air that you should hook up with.
I think the name you mentioned earlier, it did ring a bell. Because I think he stopped in a one of the distilleries in Daytona, the Daytona Beach area, and I think they are either carrying something that they've worked together on or something to that effect. But I know they had made some posts. So I give a shout out there is Copper Bottom Craft Distilling in Holly Hill, Florida, just is right near in Daytona Beach area, and Jeremy's great. He's the distiller guy. We've had a good discussion on how when the term gets thrown around like head distiller or master distiller, and it's
master distiller,
and he's like, no, that's not. It's a term, right? You feel like nobody. It's very hard to achieve or be recognized for that. You just don't call it yourself, or just somebody just bestows it on you without feeling that you're industry, or whatever, recognizes, you're recognized by your peers. I think that's the part, right?
Exactly.
That's the point, right? Yeah. So, but cool. No, yeah, we'll definitely have to chat and talk about it there. So I know there's a lot going on. So, well, cool. Now, Jay, I appreciate definitely coming on, chatting. I have a feeling if we wanted to make this a marathon podcast episode, we probably could. But we know most people, trying to drive in their car and listen to an over an hour and a half podcast.
Well, Paul, I'm telling you right now, we can give them the condensed version in clips on Instagram if they want it. We can and we can also do short lives if that is better to their liking. But to be honest, I'm really humbled to be able to be on here, and thanks for inviting me, man.
Yeah, you got it. I appreciate it. So, all right. So again, I'd like to thank JJ for coming on the podcast, talking about it. It's his spirits, his distilling, his experiences. So check out the Drums and Rumps podcast. Give it a like, follow. Again, that is as we talked about. That is an important thing. Do the ratings and reviews because that's what people do look at. Advertise all these things, right? I'm not just speaking out my ass. That's what everyone says. That's what Ross Patterson tells everybody to. Give us a 5-star rating and a review, right? And maybe if I get enough reviews, I'll be like Eric Tansey, and I'll actually start doing read the reviews. But right now, I don't have a whole lot. That's why I'm saying, give me some reviews, give me some feedback. Tell me if I'm good, bad, or whatever.
Come on,
that's
I
right.
want to know.
Yeah. So yeah, look for the other great episodes out there. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Again, we're trying to push to 1,000, get to 1,000 subs. Subscribe to, go to the website, journalrumps.com. And I want to thank you all for, this episode. Again, have fun here, JJ. So again, thank you all. This is where the backbeats meets the spirits. Here's y'all.